very, very important for us. But the starting point I'd like to say is with the development of the instrument. The survey instrument, the questionnaire. Every researcher, because it's like garbage in, garbage out. Even if you gather false information that has no relationship with your study, by means of the instrument you generate, if you run an analysis, it will give you results. But those results are meaningless because they have nothing to do with your study. And on the basis of that, you will be making conclusions and recommendations that are not in consonance with your intention. Prof talked about the intention of the researcher being different from the topic of that researcher, and he had to point that out. Okay, so matching your intention with the data that you generate becomes very, very important, and that starts from the state of operationalizing your study concepts. Operationalizing your study concepts becomes very, very important. Now, if you operationalize your study concepts properly, then what that will mean is that the instruments you will generate, you will have the right items on that instrument. And if you have the right items on that instrument and you use that instrument to generate information, then you are in the process of actually solving the problem that sets you out for that study in the first place. Because every research begins with a problem. Are we together? Every research begins with a problem. And for you as a researcher, you must identify the problem. And the data you are generating is to help you resolve, unravel that problem. And for you to be able to make appropriate recommendations. So the instrument becomes very, very important. A common error in the development of your research instrument is to raise questionnaire items that relate the study variables as a common error. When I came, I asked for a project work here so I can use as an illustration. I saw that error also here. If you do that, then you will not be able to do descriptive analysis to tell us the state of each of that variable in the organization or in the environment that you are studying. It's difficult then to isolate the variables and their process to then give a descriptive assessment of their level of manifestation in that sector, in that industry, in that organization that you are studying. So your questionnaire items should be such that you are raising posers on each of the variables on their own. So you can then do an assessment, a descriptive assessment to say, for instance, teacher's performance is at this level. Or student performance is at this level in these schools that we are studying. For instance, you're looking at the study of environment and student performance. If you link by your questionnaire items, if you link environmental, the dimensions of the environment to the measures of performance, there's already a problem, because then you will not be able to independently assess the level of performance in that organization, the quality of the environment in that organization. It is inferential statistical analysis that will then show the relationship, not you by linking them in the development of your questionnaire. All right, so let's move on. So data preparation, coding, and data entry are very important. We'll demonstrate that when we get on. Move on to the next slide. We'll talk about data entry. Move on. Okay, so, sorry, go back to that slide. Now, it's always important that for every study, you identify demographic items that are relevant to your study. What I see sometimes is students completely exclude demographic items, or sometimes they just copy and paste demographic items. So any project you see certain demographic items. What are demographic items? Those are characteristics of the sample. So you want to have some information about those who are responding to your survey instrument. Are they more males or females? Are they of a particular religious inclination or the other? Are they of a particular affiliation or the other? What level are they in the organization? Are they senior members of the organization or junior workers and all of that? Those are demographic items. Even when your study variable is not along that line, it is important that for your study you identify those who are responding to you and who are they, because sometimes you will need that for your discussion of findings. Because when you find certain things, some explanation can be derived from the characteristics of the sample. I don't know if that makes sense. For instance, you are doing a study on the importance of ICT on student academic performance or teachers' performance. Then you need to run some demographic, so you don't just ask the question, what is your educational qualification? Because you may have a PhD and still don't know how to use the computer. Then you have to treat that demographic item to focus on computer education. Are you getting the point? To focus on computer education. So when they respond to you, when you finish your study and you have certain outcomes, then you'll be able to explain. Perhaps it is because the requisite computer education, that's why we are having this outcome. Or we are having this favorable outcome because a good number of the staff members have this level of computer literacy. So it's important that you pick demographic items that are relevant to your study. The demographic items relevant to one person's research may not be relevant to another person's research. What we see is just copy and paste. Certain demographic items running through. Every decision you make for a postgraduate research has to be deliberate. How does that help you in the final analysis? It's very, very important. So, demographic analysis should then necessarily be the first stage of analysis that you do as a researcher. Demographic analysis has to be the first stage of analysis that you do as a researcher. The second stage of analysis that you do as a researcher is univariate analysis, where you take each of your study variables and their empirical reference, as their dimensions or measures, and you do an analysis to know the level of manifestation of that variable in the industry that you are studying. You are doing a study on teachers' motivation and organizational performance. You need to first ascertain the level of motivation of the teachers, extrinsic motivation. Then you need to run a descriptive test to tell us the level of intrinsic motivation and the level of. I've seen a student who did a study on remote working and performance of the civil service in Rivers State. And the person had wonderful analysis, beautiful conclusions, powerful recommendations. And then the question I ask is, in the civil service in Rivers State, are they practicing remote work? Are they practicing remote work? But if you see the analysis, wow. If you see the results, if you see the findings, in fact, the recommendations can solve the problem of Nigeria. But it's meaningless. And the simple reason is because the person did not run a descriptive analysis to tell us the level of the practice of remote work in that organization. Yet the person is claiming that remote work is impacting the performance of the civil service. How? So descriptive analysis is important for every postgraduate research. Tell us a bit about the level of manifestation of each of your variables. before you come to now tell us how this variable affects this other variable, which is bivariate analysis. So univariate analysis, descriptive tools are useful for univariate analysis, particularly the mean score, the X-bar. Move on to the next slide. Bivariate analysis, where you are now relating one variable, like the topic of this project. This person's, I hope I call it the topic. I want to give the name anonymous. So I hope I call it the topic because it's a current project. I won't disclose who the person is. Okay, but the topic suggests that the person is looking at the relationship between one variable and another variable. So then bivariate analysis will be important. If you have a moderating variable, because some studies, particularly as you go to the level of PhD research, it is important that you don't turn a blind eye to the context of the study. So sometimes you bring in some contextual issues that may impact the relationship you are trying to look at. Then if you do that, you need to move to the third level of multivariate analysis to ascertain the impact that that moderator is playing in the relationship that you are studying. So we have univariate analysis, we have bivariate analysis, and then we have multivariate analysis. I believe this slide will be made available to you so you will get the details. Let's move on. Interpretation of results. It is always important that for every level of analysis you do, before you start, you state the benchmark. There are professional statisticians who have written out the benchmark for interpreting results. Interpretation of descriptive statistical tools, there are benchmarks. Interpretation of inferential statistical tools, there are benchmarks. So always ensure that you are able to state the benchmark before you start the analysis. Every analysis you do will end up with results, will produce results. The results are those figures that you see, 4.7, 0.72. Those figures that you see are the results. But for you to make meaning of those results, you have to interpret the results. You don't interpret the results arbitrarily. You interpret the results based on predetermined benchmarks. Predetermined benchmarks. And that helps you to interpret the result. Result interpreted gives you findings. Understand the process. You have a research problem. You operationalize your variables, and that helps you to generate questionnaire items. You serve the questionnaire to the respondents, they respond to you. That which they respond to you is the data. Now, the data, you run analysis on the data, you get results. Those figures that you get out of the analysis, you get those results. The results have to be interpreted based on established benchmarks. So you interpret the results, and what you get from that interpretation is finding. Now, the finding helps you then to make some concluding statements. So for instance, if I found in my study, I ran, let's say I used regression analysis, or I used the sperma rank order correlation, or the person, depending on whether my data is, depending on the nature of my data, whether it's ordinal or interval and all of that. Now, if I run the statistics, let's say I have a correlation coefficient of 0.87, obviously, looking at the benchmark, 0.87 is on the high, isn't it? That means that there is a strong positive relationship if there is no negative sign between the variables or the indicators I'm assessing. Now, my finding is that there is a strong positive relationship between A and B based on that result, having interpreted it. Now, what then is my finding? My finding is giving an explanation for that. My conclusion is giving an explanation that matches that finding. So if I say there is a strong positive relationship between A and B, then I can make a concluding statement, which is my conclusion, that if A is enhanced, B will be enhanced. That's my conclusion. And the conclusion must be drawn from the finding. The finding must be based on the interpretation. Interpretation of what? The result. The results come from where? The data. The data is based on what? My operationalization of my concept. Why am I operationalizing the concept? Because I have a problem I want to solve. It's one research, and everything must flow along that path. So the SPSS only helps you to ease the burden of analysis. That you, the researcher, must have the framework of what you want to do. And that's very important. Let's move on. Sometimes I see students fixating on hypothesis testing. It's good. It's important for every research. But sometimes we are putting the cart before the horse. Then, your hypothesis testing, particularly for those of us in environmental sciences that focuses, you do a lot of hypothesis testing on significant difference. We do a lot of testing on significant association, level of significance. And students fixate. Every student, their focus is there is a significant relationship between this and different. There is a significant relationship between this. If you go to our library, everywhere significant. And I was asking my PhD class this morning, I said, what's the meaning of significance in statistics? It's a very important. Something that is, I listened to all of them, and all of them gave similar response. I said, that's where the problem comes. When you test the level of significance, the association between two variables, you are only saying, I have a population of 1,000, but I did my analysis on the basis of, if you use the Tauro-Yamel formula, maybe you get around 268 to get the sample size. So I didn't study the entire population. I studied a sample of 268 out of 1,000. So what that level of significance is telling you is, this thing that I found from this sample, which is a small portion of the entire population, can I generalize it to the entire population? That's what it's about. So, but when students focus on the hypothesis as if that's the main thing, they are missing it, because you need to find out something first before you now say, this thing that I found in this small sample, can I generalize it to the larger population? But students will leave their research questions. They will leave the coefficients, the correlation coefficients that tell you the relationship between the study variables. And the is level of significance. Because they have the mindset that the word significance simply means, I have found something very, very important. It is what you have found that you are trying to say, can I generalize it to the entire population? That's the essence of running that, the p-value, to find out the level of significance. You do t-test and all of that. So it's important that we place things in perspective. This study clearly is a correlational study. The person wants to study two important variables in the educational sector. The student must be able to ascertain the strength of the relationship, the direction of the relationship first, before the student now tells us whether this can be generalized. But even here, I saw that the emphasis was on hypothesis testing. Let's move on. Okay, so the computer, the advent of the SPSS is not so new. It's as old as the 1960s, really. But it has had different progression. At some point, we now also keyed into it, and it has become very useful. Statistical partly for social sciences. So those in education, those in sociology, those in management sciences, It's not the only computer-aided software. We have Israel, we have Atlas, we have, Indigo is a software for qualitative research. So there are a number of other software, but the SPSS is very, very common. Let's move on, just move on. So put on your SPSS. I want to come to the practical. Or should I talk about the referencing, which is also the second point? My topic is in two sides, referencing, and then before we come to demonstration, should I just go on to referencing? So that when we come to demonstration, we end with that. Okay, so move on until you get to the part B. You will see part B. All these are step by step. I try to put step by step. So if you have this document later on, you can use it to help yourself with whatever we are going to do here. And put them step by step with an arrow, press this, click this, you will see this. So that's what I've done. So keep moving until we get to part B. So referencing is the second part I've been asked to speak. I went to an academic conference some time ago. I was invited to speak as the keynote speaker in one of our sister universities in a research workshop. And at the end of the session, time for question and answer, the students said, why are they disturbing us with this issue of referencing? Is it important? But my dilemma that day was when the professor said, he has been thinking about this thing too. It's not necessary. One of the attributes of an academic is your being meticulous. Your ability to be meticulous is a key attribute of an academic. And if there is anything in an academic write-up that tests that attribute, it is the referencing. Because even with the same referencing style, one edition from another, you will see differences. So your ability to apply the one that you are required to apply for a particular case becomes important. You see different referencing style adopted by different journal publications. They will tell you the one they are adopting. And if you adopt a different one from the one they are requesting you to adopt, they will reject your paper. So referencing is important, and it requires you to be painstaking and be very, very observant. Generally, literature is important at the stage of background to your study, literature review, discussion of findings, contribution to knowledge. At all of these points, one way or the other, you may refer to literature. There are sources of literature, published books, books of readings, published journal articles, research reports, conference papers, monographs, and all of that. All of these have specific requirements for how you reference them. Move on. There are many ethical issues that will be discussed in the course of this workshop, so I won't dwell on that. One of the issues which has to do with what I'm discussing is the issue of plagiarism. You take someone's idea and you do not give due credence to the source of that idea. To avoid that, because that comes with consequences, you have to pay attention to the issue of referencing. Now, there are two important parts of referencing that you need to take care of. The first is in-text citation. That is the citation in the body of the work. How do you handle it? The second is the reference listing, which is at the end of the work. How do you list? These two are very important. Some will pay attention to in-text citation and give little attention to the reference listing. Some will have a beautiful reference listing, but the in-text citation is not good at all. Citation and referencing is like the icing on the cake for every research. A beautiful research work can be scored very poorly on account of poor citation or referencing. And that's why we need to pay serious attention to it. Common referencing styles. We have Vancouver, Vancouver references that uses superscript numbers. So you'll see in some text, in some literature, you just see numbers. 1, 2, 3. You don't see the name of the author, you just see numbers. Then they will now list all the numbers at the end of the work and then give the full details of the author of that. So that's for Vancouver. Chicago is also a similar method. Chicago also uses numbers. But with Chicago, they have footnotes. Chicago has footnotes. So when you see the number, if you go down at the bottom of the page, you will now see number 1. This is the author. Number 2, this is the publication detail. Number 3, the publication detail. So that's what Chicago does. And then how you arrange the name of the author, the title of the publication details, I have put them there. You can read them all. Then, because I want to give a little emphasis to the APA references that, which is what we use here. Then Oxford also use numbers. But with Oxford, they have the footnotes and they also list all the references at the end. That's the difference. Vancouver only lists at the end. Chicago only has footnotes. Oxford has both footnotes and they also list at the end. So you will see the listing chronologically, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So it's not in alphabetical order. It's according to how the references appear in the body of the work. Are we together? All right. Move on. Then there are some, 2 particularly, that use the author's detail in the body of the work. One of them is Harvard references that. Okay, with Harvard, when there is a direct quotation, you see them use P to represent the page number P7. That's page 7 page 7 to 8. You see PP 7 to 8. Then Harvard uses and. That's to spell out the word and. So if you have Asawo and Ahuzu, you use and, or Ahuzu and Asawo, sorry, you use and to differentiate the name. But for APA, the sign, ampersand, is used. And you will not see PP, you won't see the use of volume, V, OL, which you will see in this other one. So those are little differences. Where Harvard uses a colon, you will see APA using a comma or a full stop. So those are the details we'll look at very briefly. So this is APA. I just gave a few illustrations with APA. Now, and this is sourced from the APA website. So you see, this first one is for journal article. You have the author's surname, that's the first author's surname, a comma. The things that are most important in referencing are this comma, full stop, colon, this, that. And that's the area that students ignore. But that's the most important. So after the first name, comma, you have the initials, comma, dot after the initials, then comma. And ordinary English language, it looks wrong because when you have and here, it looks like that comma is useless. But APA says that's what they want. And if you are doing APA, you have to put it. Then you have ampersand, that sign. Then the second author, comma, the initials, then the year of publication. The year of publication in parentheses. Then a full stop. With Harvard, you will have a colon, a full stop. The title of the article, and you see they are deliberate, they are not just, look at what they did. The title of the article Only T is capital. What they are telling you is that, except for proper nouns, the title of the article should be title case, meaning that only the first letter should start with capital. All others are small letters, except where you have the proper noun, the name of a person, the name of a country, the name of a city. Then that's have a colon in between. Then the first letter after the colon also starts with a capital letter. So name of, then the name of the journal, the name of the periodical, the journal is a periodical because it comes in series. The name of the periodical, which is usually in italics. It's usually in italics. And every keyword in the name of the journal starts with capital letter, except the articles of, it, at, us, and articles like that. So here you see, this is capital, this is capital. Only the articles are small letters. So the name of the journal, you have capital for all the keywords, and it comes in italics. Then the volume, so a comma after the name of the journal, then the volume number. It doesn't come with VOL, just the number. And the number is also in italics. The number of the volume alone is crazy, really. The number of the volume alone is in italics, along with the name of the journal. Then you open the bracket, then you put the issue number. The issue number is not in italics. It's testing how meticulous you are. Because you are being prepared for a higher calling. You are educators. You teach our children. You must be meticulous. So the volume number, then the page number. This refers to the page number. So comma after the parentheses, then the page number. 14-27 means that article is from page 14 to then you have a full stop. Recently, the digital object identifier, which is DOI, has become very, very important for many journals, where they give some permanent status on the web, the World Wide Web, for a particular journal. So if you have the DOI number, you will also state it, but without a full stop at the end of it. So that's for journal. We, for lack of time, will run into the analysis, but this is what you do for a book. This one is for a journal. For a book, similar all this way, down here, the title of the book is in italics. The title of the book is treated differently from the title of an article. The title of the book is in italics. What should guide your mindset is that the publication itself is the one that is in italics. The publication itself. It is the book that is the publication. The journal is the publication. It is the journal that has the ISBN number, not the individual article. Are you getting it? So the title of the journal is what is in italics. The title of the paper is not in italics, and it's title case. The title of the journal or the title of the books is in what we call the initial cap, which is different from the title case. The title case is just the first case that is capital. Alright, so the title of the book, then you put the edition. If that book has several editions and you are using a particular edition, you put the edition, then the publisher. The difference between the 6th and the 7th edition with APA is that with the 6th edition, you put the city of publication, colon, before the publisher. But in the 7th edition, the city of publication is no longer included. You just put the name of the publisher, and then that ends it. If you have a DOI or the website, if it's sourced or if it's a soft copy you source online, you put the details. And a detailed book. I was going to talk about a detailed book, but my guide is helping me know that I've spent too much time on the super, and they are not even part of those community chapters. So you see, for each chapter, you see the name of the. So that's how to reference that. You begin, for instance, let's say you have my work. I contributed a chapter in a book. I'm not part of the editorial team. And you took a material, you referenced me, my work, in that book. So what you do is you start with the reference of the chapter contributor. The detail of the chapter contributor. Then the date of publication using the same principles. Then the title of that my chapter. The title of that my chapter. Then full stop. You now put in, you now list the editors. So you got my work in this book, and that book has editors who are the owners of the book. Now, note the difference. With my own details, and as is the case here, you begin with my surname and move on to my initials. Therefore, the editors, you begin with their initials. They are compounding the problem, isn't it? You begin with the initials of the editors. And in brackets, you don't need to repeat the page. You put EDS, which means editors. EDS full stop. If it's a single editor, ED full stop. But here you have two editors. Then the title of the book. A comma after, they are not a full stop. Then the title of the book. After that, you put the edition, you put the page number, and put the DOI if any. Okay, so let's move on to SPSS. Put on your SPSS. Here on this system, so can you project the SPSS window? So we can do. How many minutes do I have now? 20 minutes. Okay. Let me use this 20 minutes to bring water out of the rock. Because it's something when we train, we can train for 2 days to really get it done. But like I said, it's something, and you see, for every postgraduate researcher and every academic, the internet is your friend. The internet is your friend. Online channels are very important to you. Sometimes there's my former NSC student who now works in Aba. And then last week she called me to say, "Sir, please." She chatted me up to say, being the University University has opened up, has started admitting postgraduate students. Possibly she wants to come for a PhD. So I replied, yes, and the advert started that last week. The next thing she typed is that is a platform on, and I threw a question at her. I said, "What is your phone doing?" Someone is asking me, someone who has a phone, who has data in the phone, to be able to chat me, is asking me if the university platform, the portal, if the portal is now open. That's something you can check where you are. Am I looking for admission? How do I know if the portal is on or not? So as academics, as postgraduate researchers, please, the internet is your friend. There are many questions, and that's the beauty of AI. There are many questions that you have the answers waiting for you to access, and you are refusing to access it. And you are so troubled because you think you don't have the answer. So with the SPSS, I can bet you, if you go back and use any of your search engines and do a search, you will see 3 manuals. you see free manuals that you can download and use to be for. So what we want to do is, if you open the SPSS, you see this window. Have you seen the window? Anyone has not seen the window? I hope when they installed it, I hope they closed it and you are the one that opened it by yourself. Yes. Because if they left it open, the first problem will be when you go back home, how to open it. So, then it's like every other program. If it's on your window, you just double click on it and it will come. It will open up. Or you search for it through the normal process as you search for any other program on your system, and then you open it. So when you open it, this is what appears. This is called the data view. At the foot of this, you see data view and variable view. By default, what opens is the data view. So all of you have data view, isn't it? Click on variable view. Something different, isn't it? Yes. All right. So this is the variable view, and this is where to start. You don't talk about data until you first describe your instrument, the items on your instrument. Because the system will need to understand what variables you are storing. So by default, is the data view that you will see, but you do nothing on it. You just go to, so click back on data view and click back on variable view. This workshop, that's how we do it. Click on data view, look at it, try to identify the difference between what you see here and what you see on variable view. And go back to variable view, click on variable view. So this variable view helps you to describe your instruments. So the reason I asked the coordinator to get me this project is to see the instrument. And my eye, when I see something, I cannot just remove my eye. This eye, don't be seeing everything, just remove your eye and take what you want to take. Take what you want to take, and there's enough to take here. So this person, I'll take some things here. So, name represents the, so let me say the first item on this questionnaire is gender. That's what I see here. The first item here is gender. Number one, gender. So you need to describe that operational reference, that's the demographic item. And when you come to your main study variables, you do the same, so the procedure is the same. So click on name under number one. No, not on the cell. On the cell, number one cell. Yeah. Under name. Have you clicked on it? Yes. Type gender. You've done that. Click on types, the next cell. What do you see? By default, it comes out as numeric. The demographic items are really not used except in special cases like you do a lot where gender could be a main study variable. So it is not just a nominal data in your context. But if your demographic item is a nominal data, then if for instance you say male 2, female 1, the 1 and 2 makes no mathematical meaning. It's not for purpose of calculation because male is not twice more important than female. Are you getting it? So that is just categorization. It's just for purposes of categorization. So assuming, let's say, gender in the case of your study is a nominal data. Click on the 3 dots. You see 3 dots by numeric because you have to change it. Because, so For such data type, you use string, so I like string. By default, it comes on numeric. Like once you click on string, you see it has changed to string, then click on OK. So that is that. Click on those three dots again. Okay, so the width of your characteristics has the characters. If you want to change it, you can change it, but there's no need for changing it. So that's why it's showing here 8. By default, it's here. So move on, remove it. Decimal places, if you want your results to come out in decimal places, you can change. If you click on that 0, click by its side to see, you can change that 0 to 1 or 2 or whatever number of decimal places you want. By default, it's 0. So let's leave it. Go to label. So you see, if you want to change it, go there, click on this. Yes, click on it. No, yes, click on it. If you want to change it, you have you can use a drop down button and all of that to change or to go up or to come up. Go to label. This is where you describe what is the meaning of gender. What I advise students to do, which makes this process very easy, if you have prepared your questionnaire, the SPSS window is very friendly with your word, your word, MS Word. So you can copy and paste. You can easily copy. The same way you can copy tables from the SPSS window and paste in your Word document where you have your project work. So define what gender is. Whatever. Define something. Don't say gender is the gender of a person. You know, there's a difference between conceptual definition and operational definition. When you're giving a conceptual definition, you don't use a concept to define itself. As students do that a lot. Motivation is the process of motivating. Leadership is when someone leads. So give a proper definition of what gender is. Move to value. That's very, very important. You can't miss that. Value. Take the trade-offs. In your questionnaire, what numbers will you give to male or female? At least here we are still operating with 2, 1, and 2. So if, for instance, in your questionnaire, male is given 1, type 1 there. Then go to label, type male. Add. Go back to value, type 2. Go down, female. Add. Add that. So you see, this is what you will see. So anytime, in respect to this questionnaire item, anytime the system sees 1 with regard to the responses by all your respondents on this particular question, anytime the software sees number 1, it understands that number 1 to be male. Anytime it sees 2 in respect to this question, it understands that to be female. So do okay. Missing, sometimes there are missing items in questionnaire. I don't want to go to the complex things. It's a bit complex to deal with that with you. Column, leave that. Left align or right align, leave that. Go to measures. That's another important thing I need to talk about. What version of the SPSS is being installed? Which edition? 21. Okay. There are more recent editions, which has ordinal, nominal, and scale. Scale representing interval and ratio data. Okay? But what you have here is ordinal and interval. So because we changed this to string, immediately it changed to nominal data. Otherwise, you would have seen it as ordinal data. So leave it as it is. Let me give you one assignment to do now. Do educational qualification. You are giving your questionnaire, and the questionnaire you have educational qualification. And then you have categories like SSC, you have BSc, you have MSc, and you have PhD. Those 4 categories. Do it. I'm coming around to see. Using the same principle. So that will be on number 2. Now leave the one you have done. This variable will help you describe every item on your questionnaire, one after the other. So you have to do that first before you now talk about the data. And once you have done that once, you don't repeat it. It's gone, it's done. No, the same page. The same page. Number 2 now, your second item on your questionnaire is educational qualification of your respondents. So that will now be on number 2. Are we together? Number 2 now, you have done number 1. Number 1 was gender. Number 2 is educational qualification. So do it from the beginning to the end. And I mentioned the different categories for educational qualification. You have SSC, you have BSc, you have MSc, and you have PhD. You have done something wrong, and the system says you can't so remove it. What's the fine. Oh, I've seen what you have done wrong. Anyone having a challenge? What's the challenge? Something is telling you, no. Listen to it. What is it telling you? What did it say? There's some people that progress now. There should be no space. There should be no space. You can do edu as one word or educational qualification as one word. There should be no space. And then go and change to string now. Then move on to label. What does educational qualification mean? Then move on to value. And I've said there are 4 categories. SSC is lowest. Then BSc. Then PhD. Please, after now, thank Director very well for arranging to install the SPSS for you. If there is nothing you've gotten out of this, this is very important. Because educational qualification tool is a nominal data. For this, for example, we are giving. Yes, what's the challenge? Yes. What are they saying? What do you mean by educational qualification? Oh, okay, people are there. Then let me see what they are also doing now. They have systems there too. Okay. A lot of people here too, sorry. Now, I've been communicating with you. Okay, and you are doing all I've asked them to do. Any challenge? Madam has finished her own, she's ready to do analysis already. Okay, whatever. All right. Let us do. Let me see this person's topic so that we take one or two more to strengthen our understanding of this game. Because this is half of the work done. When you're able to. So what you are doing is you are taking every item on the questionnaire from the beginning. The first item, you treat it as number one. The second item on the questionnaire, the third item, until you get to the very last item on the questionnaire. This person has apart from the demographic items, this person has up to 20 or up to 30 items. So we expect to see number one, number two, number three, and you can scroll down. The more items you have, you can scroll down. So we should see till number 30. All right. So one of these, let me see how this person operationalized. Okay. One of the variables for this person's study is the predictor is professional development programs. Professional development programs. Can anyone give me one dimension of professional development programs? One dimension of professional education program. Is anyone talking to me? Okay, so training workshop. Okay, it says this one. I'm not an education so I'm relying on what you feed me. So training workshop is a conference, training workshop or conference. Okay, so let's say training workshop. So in my questionnaire, I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 questions or items that address trainings organized in the organization. We call them questionnaire items. So let's say one of the training items is workshop. So let's do workshop. Do workshop. Because the questionnaire, the items should address the dimensions of your variables. That's why you have a section for your predictor variable, you have a section for your criterion variable, if you have a coordinator, you have a section for it. So do workshop and run through lesson. And let's say your questionnaire, you are using a 5-point Likert scale. Let me see what this person does so that you can complete the process. This person used a 4-point Likert scale. From strongly disagreed being the lowest to strongly agreed. So you have strongly disagreed as 1, disagreed as 2, agreed as 3, and strongly agreed as 4. Do that for workshop. Strongly disagree 1, disagree 2, agree 3, strongly agree 4. Some people are becoming experts already. That's good. So this will no longer be string because you have come to the main study variable. So you will leave it as numeric. Are you getting it? Workshop now, we are now looking at the main study variable. So it will no longer be string, it's no longer nominal data. So you will leave it as numeric. Because that is what we will do more advanced analysis on. Describe what workshop is now. What is workshop? Where you work is where you job. So yeah, someone has advised when you look at numeric, you see the third option of scale. So go to that place and change it to scale. And if your data is not as exact as the pure science, so we will have it. Who has workshop? You have finished workshop. Very good. Who has not finished workshop? Raise your hand and let me know if I can progress. You have not finished workshop. You need small time. Let me see your hand. Okay, look quickly, look quickly. Those who have finished, let me see what you have done. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I'll look quickly there. Let me just see what you have done. Let me see the values. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's see the values. Oh yeah, you are right. We started one, yes. From the least to the highest. Go to the values. Let me see how you handle the values. Yes. Okay, you decided to use abbreviations. That's also fine. But that's how you also see your results. No, you mixed it up. Strongly disagree was 1. Disagree was 2. So you mixed it up. Beautiful. Now the beauty of this is that, for instance, you see, for this person's question here, from that number to the very last number, the value will be the same. The value will be the same because all the questionnaire items has that 4-point scale. So all I need to do is every single time. Just go on with the other details. Then you right click on that space, copy it, then highlight all the other ones, right click and paste. You did that. Okay, because these cannot be left empty. That is why you now put variable 001 variable. They just put something like that. Click on it and give it a name. So don't do that until you have finished these other details. Just a minute to check what I was saying that. Okay, someone has already done it. Okay, they are okay. So to say they are projecting the same thing, isn't it? So if you click on it, right click on it. So if your questionnaire items you are using the same values, you don't need to repeat the value every time for every questionnaire item. So you just do one and then go to the other ones and fill the other details, leaving the value. Then at the end, you right click on that value which you have already entered. You see copy, you copy it. Then you highlight all the rest, right click again and paste. The value which you have already entered, enter all of them. Sorry? It depends on your questionnaire. We don't have the luxury of time to do many more. So I'll just do one more for the criterion variable so that we can do something. Right, click on it. Click here and drag. They don't paste it. Click here. Click your hand and drag. You will highlight those spaces. Then if you right click on it, you can paste. Alright, let's do one more. One more. My time is almost up, so that we can quickly run a very quick something on data. Okay, they've done quite a lot here, but you see, because you did that, it immediately gave you, okay, different names for the other variables. So let's deal with number 4. So this person's criterion variable is job performance. Job performance. So let's say one of the measures of job performance is efficiency. Are we together? Let's say one of the measures of performance is efficiency. I don't know what the person is, but let's say efficiency. So do efficiency on number 4. Do efficiency on number 4. Then you can now copy the value you have on number 3 and paste on number 4. Efficiency, number 4, efficiency. Do efficiency. That's a measure of your criterion variable, that's dependent variable. Yes, everything from that time on. The principle is your main study variables that you will use superior statistical tools to do analysis on is numeric. It's only categorical data that you are not using for serious analysis that you leave as nominal. I'm glad at the speed. I think I'm really glad at the speed. And if you keep practice, one thing with this is, if you leave it for 1 week, it will leave you for 1 month. At this early stage, keep the pace, practicing. Take a questionnaire and practice when you get home. Maybe from your previous project work as your graduate or whatever, or anyone you can borrow anywhere. Just take a questionnaire and practice. The more you practice, the more you internalize it. If you have any challenge, you call a friend who was here and clarify it, and you move on. Or you look at the manual, the PowerPoint I sent. I put everything in a way that you can run with it. Who is done with efficiency? You are done with efficiency. Who else is done? You are done. All right. Now let's go to data view. So you will do that for every item on your questionnaire from the beginning of the questionnaire to the end in chronological order. Then your work on variable view has ended as far as that particular study is concerned. Now let's go to data view. You see, something has changed here. This was not what was there before, isn't it? So the things that you filled are taking up this space. What you did on variable view now appears at the top of the window, the data view window. So what this now is that you now pick, so whereas on the variable view, every number is a questionnaire item. Listen to this, it's important. In the variable view, every number you are dealing with is a questionnaire what? Item. In the data view, every number is a respondent. In the data view, every number is a respondent. So, if I pick the first copy of the questionnaire, that respondent, I will need to fill what the person said is their gender, educational qualification, the level of workshop in their organization, and the person's opinion about the level of efficiency of workers. I'll do that till I get to the end, then I set that copy aside. What I advise is always number the copies of your questionnaire so that anytime you can go back and say, okay, there's an error of what I put on number 5, so you can quickly identify that copy of the questionnaire. So you do that for the first respondent, you set it aside. You take the second one. You take the second one, you do that, you take the third one, you do that. So let's start filling. Fill your own gender and your own educational qualification. Answer it. Remember, in gender, number 1 is what? Number 2 is what? So there, what we'll be seeing is 1 and 2. If we see 3, you are not in Nigeria. Fill your gender, fill your educational qualification. So under educational qualification, I should see 1, 2, 3, or 4. Of course, all of you here to be here, and I don't expect to see number 1. The least I will see is number 2. For instance, if in that questionnaire you sent out to ask, or you made a statement, in our organization, periodic workshops are held. Then the person answers, strongly agreed. That's number 4. If the person answered, strongly disagreed. That's number 1. So that answer the person gave is what you will feel there. So you now, imagine that you are assessing this institute, and I am the researcher. I gave you a questionnaire, and I asked in the institute. I made a statement in the institute. Periodic workshops are held, and you answer it. Sorry. So assuming you have a questionnaire, and the first questionnaire is gender, and you are all responding to it. Remember, we send 1 for male, 2 for female. If you are feeling educational qualification in that questionnaire, put the answer there. If you are feeling, maybe the questionnaire, the person is asking about the workshop that is held in the institute, fill there. Then, assessing the efficiency of the system, answer that one so that we can use that to do something. Have we all filled? All right. All right, so you will do that if you have 100 copies of the questionnaire. You will take each copy and impute the data. That is what we call data entry. You take each copy and you impute the data. You take each copy and you impute the data. I think it was Sekaran, I referenced that Sekaran or Saratan, I think Sekaran. If your questionnaire, a particular respondent, leaves a number of items unanswered, it happens, isn't it? Sekaran says, if 75% and above have been answered, that questionnaire you can use. But if less than 75% of that questionnaire have not been answered, it will distort your database. So don't use that particular copy of the questionnaire. So for instance, I gave all of you, and then Madam returned out, and then out of 10 questions, she answered only 5. I should not use that copy, I should remove it. But if she answered up to 8, then I can give the midpoint value to those 2 that she did not answer. I, as a researcher, can give the midpoint value to those 2 that she did not answer because it will not significantly distort the database. So that is what we refer to as data cleaning. We have data entry, we have data cleaning. Data cleaning is where you try to resolve some of these issues. I'm giving an example. When you have done all of that, so at the end of the day, we will see this kind of numbers all across. So if I have, let's say my sample size was 26. Okay, so let's say my sample size was 30. And at the end of data cleaning, only 25 were good to use. So it means that I will see from number 1 to number 25. It means I discarded 5 because there were some who mutilate, some will answer strongly agreed and still think strongly disagreed. All kinds of things happen. So you may have 30 distributed, 28 returned, and only 25 usable. So then here you will see from number 1 to 25. All here you will see those numbers 1, 2, 4, 3, 4, 1, 2. Those are the things you will see here. Then you are ready for analysis. How do you carry out analysis? Go to analyze. Click on analyze. What do you see? Different statistical tools that you can apply. I'm not the one that will tell you the one that is suitable for your own study. It depends on what you are looking out for. And if you are going to do descriptive statistics, then click on descriptives. You see frequencies, descriptives, and the rest of them. Click on descriptives. As you click on descriptive, all the items come out here. So you will now pick on the particular item that you want to run a descriptive test on. So, okay, so let's start with demography. So go to frequency. I'll do cancel this. Cancel. Go to analyze. Go to descriptives. Go to frequencies. Frequencies. Alright, so click on gender. And this person defines gender as the sex of the respondent. So click on it. Use this drop down button to move it. Click on that button. You can move there. It means this is now ready for analysis. This is now ready for analysis. Now go to statistics. Statistics, yeah. These are the things that you can do as far as this particular variable is concerned. Then because it's just frequencies you want to run, just click on continue, don't make any change. Click on chart. If you want by default, no chart will appear, it's unknown. But if you want your result, that's your frequency table, to come along with a bar chart, you click on bar chart. If you want it to come along with a pie chart, click on pie chart. So click on one of them. If you want it to come with a 50% male, okay, this is valid you have to, and for what you are doing, it is not sure. Did you feel too gender? She feels and you feel. So you see, it's showing you they are equal because it's 1-1. Now, assuming you have up to 20, you collected from everybody here, then the bar chart will show that disparity of males and females. So you see, the result comes with the frequency table as well as the chart. That if you right click on it, you can copy and paste on your Word document. So if your Word document is open, all you need to do is, okay, you did a pie chart and see the pie chart. Alright, which is blue. You feel more than one side or more than one person. So you see the different ones. You feel for two persons, one is you feel for two female and one male. So you see the female is more than the male. The chart will show it. Let me see those inside. You've been able to produce a frequency table and a chart. You need a pie chart. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so you see you have more, which is the lighter male. So it means you feel more male in your distance. Okay, you need a bar chart. Beautiful. So you can do that. Go to analyze. Go to analyze. And whatever you do, you can save and later find it in the SPSS output. Go to analyze. Remove this screen. Go to analyze. So you see, if you want to run non-parametric tests, if you want to run regression, if you want to run correlation, click on correlate. You see, you have bivariate. Click on bivariate. So you have the option of using person product moment correlation, the option of using Pendle, the option of using Spearman. So depending on the nature of your data, if your data is amenable to person, you click person. If it's an ordinal data which is rank order, you use Spearman. Now we never run any analysis as to bring out any meaningful result because we didn't feel complete questionnaire with a complete database. Go back to analyze. Okay, so you see the different things you can do. The test of reliability, go to scale. Click on reliability.